This is the Variety Sports Network, created for the fans, by the fans. Now to your host of tonight's show.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, from coast to coast, welcome to the seventh inning stretch.
Thank you, Josh Edwards, for that great welcome here on a Wednesday night here. Brought to you over by Variety Sports Network in the Clutch Studios, Row 1 brand here at Variety Sports Network. Appreciate those guys sponsoring us here. Josh, we're down to a couple more weeks here of baseball, my friend, here in September. We're down to the end. We started this thing. You guys started it way back in April. I got it jumped on in May with you guys full-time from there. It's been quite the run here. We're starting to get right to the end. The wild card still has a lot to be determined. Still have a lot to be determined in the divisions as well. And we'll also go over some of the statistical leaders at this point with a little news with Trout. And, of course, we'll always go into some of our diamond notes. Shout out Peter Gammons and our weekend's best there this week on 7th Inning Stretch. If you feel the need to comment in on our terrible takes or takes you agree on, please feel free to leave it. We'll be sure to bring it up on air. We might get a little love here. Might get a little support here from Tyler McGurk later on. He might join the show. We'll see what happens later. But glad you guys are here with us this evening for another episode of the 7th Inning Stretch. Before we get into some baseball full time here, Josh, you said you had a little rant. I think it was you had me on Monday. Where are we going with this?
Yeah, well, okay, so this is not baseball related. So if you're here for baseball talk, just give me like 3 to 5 minutes. So I don't know where this is going to go. It may be quicker than that. Anyways, all right, here we go.
For the audience sake, let's make it better than that. Just kidding.
I'll try. All right, so the NFL, obviously, kickoff was this past week. I'm not like the biggest NFL fan in the world, but I grew up playing ball. I played a little bit in college. I love the game. I'm not the biggest NFL guy. But, man, this opening weekend was bad. Just the overall play was pathetic. The Giants accomplished a feat in one game that no other team has ever had happened to them in a total season. I saw that stat somewhere. I needed to fact check that, but I saw that and I was like, I can't believe somebody would come up with all that. It sounds legit, and I'm just proud to share it. I don't have it in front of me, so I can't tell you what it is, but
yeah,
it's like points against, turnovers, block, field goal. I mean, it's a bunch of these little things that happened to them that amounted to their 40-0 butt whipping they got. The quarterback play across the board was shoddy. Joe Burrow looked horrible. You can tell that he didn't get any preseason work. I mean, this is the opening weekend of the NFL. You know, this is supposed to be America's sport now, you know, because it's taken over baseball as America's pastime. And could you have not asked for a more messed up and a horrible first weekend? And then Aaron Rodgers with that ACL issue done for the season. Jets are going with Zach Wilson, it sounds like.
You sound like you lost a lot of fantasy football leagues this week as well. You sound a little bitter.
Well, Aaron Rodgers, I didn't have Aaron Rodgers. I did have Joe Burrow. I mean, I had Travis Kelce, so, I mean, I was out on that too.
On your point there, talking the gridiron here, Variety Sports, Jimmy brought this up. He did. He always
did
says
he?
that. He says he even says it's going into it. He says week one's always the worst because the teams don't get to practice anymore in the summer. So that's his theory actually. Early in the season, is a lot of these teams aren't ready to go. So you might have seen something that he's been preaching now for a while here on Variety Sports Network. Jimmy Pilato over at Far End of the Bench here, great show at Variety Sports Network. Josh, that kind of sounds like you might be on the same wavelength as him now after I hear that.
I haven't got to watch that episode yet. My week has just been so entire. Man, being a father too. Again, my wife is fantastic and helps and does most of the work. But this has just been one of those weeks where the kids are just consuming all the free time. But no, I just feel like this opening week was the worst opening week I've ever seen. I know it's bad.
Games?
Huh?
Close games or just players' performance?
Overall, total. I mean, everything across the board. I just thought it was sloppy. It was sloppier than normal.
I don't Jimmy Pilato right now. I feel like I'm talking to Jimmy.
I mean, he's right. It's normally off. You know, games get really good around week 3, week 4. Week 6 is when you're getting your best football, I think. But this was just way worse than normal. You know, happy for Detroit to beat, and you know, I root for Kansas City now that I'm in Missouri. I root for the team and where I live, unless it's a team I actually can't root for. But I don't know, man. It was.
I feel you.
I don't know. It was bad.
You're getting it off your chest. You're disappointed in the play. Bring those comments Sunday night, please, next week. I'll put them on the air. We want to hear those, my friend, with it. But I appreciate you. I appreciate that. I agree with you. I think some of it was actually really sloppy with it. All I know is this: my Raiders got the win. Now. My Raiders actually got a win in the most Jimmy G fashion possible, 17-16, barely holding on to a win. So. As I had on here, the Josh rant, that is what we had here, folks. That should be our opening segment once in a while. We could do the Josh rant with it here to get it started. I hear you on that, though. How about performance, though, if we can move from football to baseball? I know it's been hard. You said family there with it. But I know you've been following the game enough, at least through the NL Centralized, that we're going to be able to have, like the last couple weeks here, I feel like the play is really – picked up a little bit with some of like the guys at this point of the year. They're trying to go for certain stats because they know their team's either eliminated. And it kind of doesn't mean they're not trying. It's just the games are played a little differently in some regards. You're bringing up a ton of prospects at this time of the year. You've probably noticed that as a Cardinals fan. You guys are either bringing them up or you're playing against teams that just constantly have these young guys in the mix. So to me, that's something I've noticed a little bit with this week of baseball. Has anything stood out to you about this week watching differently? I know you said you've mostly been watching the Cardinals, but from maybe a Major League Baseball side through their eyes of the Cardinals fan, have you kind of seen anything different in that regard?
Well, right. Okay, so we just got done playing the Orioles, taking 2 out of 3. Surprisingly.
They took 2 out of 3 from Houston.
It was shocked me. You know, I went into the series going, man, we'll be lucky to get out of here with 1. Even though last week I said, watch, they're going to go win 2 out of 3. I didn't really think it was going to happen. It was like a wild prediction. But, you know, I went into that going, all right, we get 1, I'm fine. Go out and take 2 out of 3. I'm cool with that. I don't know. Watching the Orioles, I don't know a lot of their players. But watching the teams we played previously, except for Atlanta, I'm seeing guys who I don't necessarily know and I'm not familiar with, and I know most of the guys in the NL, the above average and better players, and even a lot of the average players. I haven't seen much of the AL because I just don't get as much of that coverage here where I'm at. It's not like we're even close to Royals, so I don't get a whole lot of the AL Central unless I'm really looking for it. But I know there's a lot of guys out there that I'm seeing pop up on the fantasy rosters of getting like high point averages. But then I go and look at how many games he played. I'm like, okay, he's just got called up. He's just having that pop. So I'm actually seeing it more while I'm looking at fantasy stuff than I am by watching the game. Just to be completely transparent.
Yeah, no, I feel you on that. And one thing I wanted to go into real quick here before we touch on the Trout trades is we've been talking about the Braves a lot this year. I had them as diamond notes, but I'm going to get rid of them right now. Is the Braves tonight, because it's live and we're kind of doing the show as we're doing this more and things come up. I've tried to like add people into it. It's like the Braves just clinched their 6th straight NL East title tonight. You know what I mean? So that's an early diamond notes for everybody, but it just happened a little bit ago. We've had John on a couple times as a Braves fan. I know we've talked about the Braves a lot, but Josh, I mean, when you dominate a sport like this, you get the love. I mean, that's what happens in the game a little bit. And they have literally the top 2 offensive players maybe in the league in some capacity. You can say Mookie Betts is better. I get that, but Olsen has 51 homers now. If you look at from a fantasy standpoint too, those guys are 1-2 in the mix right there with it. I mean, the Braves officially now they clinched their East. Somebody asked a question online today. Would you rather have the 90s Braves roster? Do you think they could beat this team that won 6 straight? Like, which team would you rather have? Like that Braves team or this team right now? That's kind of going on, this run that the Braves have had. For me, it's very hard to say no to the 90s team. But to be fair, they both already have 1 World Series. Those teams are, to me, slightly different because of the Olsen factor.
Yeah, but you had that's a really, really good question. And since you're giving it to me on the spot, I'm going to go with the 90s team because I know the 90s team better. Because I had to watch them all the time because they were always on TBS. And I didn't want to watch the Cubs growing up in South Bend. So I chose to watch TBS and the Braves instead because there was no Cardinal games unless we were playing the White Sox or the Cubs. You can get them.
I'm telling you, AL is funny because for me, I was always luxurious to get both around here in that regard. with that. But I just think the Braves pulling it off. They officially get it tonight. Like I said, Acuna and Olsen have been magnificent all year, so it's about time. Who wins it? Who wins this series first, Angels or Reds? Yeah, that's a good. Hey, speaking of Doug, that's a good transition for us right here. Thanks for being. Me and Doug, by the way, are going to be doing a basketball podcast in October, so I look forward to doing that with him. But transition time here, as he kind of goes into that, he was jokingly tweeting me that the Reds should get Mike Trout in a trade. And the reason that comes up this week is because it did come out in a report. And it makes sense. You brought this out, I think, 2 weeks ago as well on the show, was that the Angels need to think about finally trading Mike Trout. Like, I believe you said that on the show here. That is something where I believe it is at the point now with the Angels where they need to move on. They need a real fresh start. They might have a lucky year here or there with Trout still on the team for the next 8 years, but it's not going to benefit the franchise. Like, maybe there's a 1 year, right? Maybe there's a 1 year off where it works, but more likely it's not. And you still have Trout that can get some things for your franchise. I think that's the way you go. They already blew the opportunity with Ohtani. Some people would say, well, that if you're an Angels fan, that's all you want to go watch. Are you really watching him, though? He's not playing a lot, and he's not helping you win ball games at the end of the day. So from that point that we talked about last week, do you think there are landing spots that he could flourish again, or is his career – I guess I'm a little worried, Josh, that he's damaged goods a little bit, or does he have a little second life in him? Like, if he get to a new spot, does that second life burst start to go? Like, if he goes to the Mets back in hometown New Jersey area, if he goes to that, does that give him life? Like Philadelphia, does that give him life? I don't know. What do you think about the Trout situation? Maybe some teams that might be interested there.
So I think you hit multiple points that I agree with, and I mean, you hit multiple points that I agree with, and I'm not going to say you had other things I disagree with necessarily, just I perceive it a little different.
Yeah.
Do I think maybe a relocation for him could bring new life to his career? I think that can happen with any player. So I don't doubt that for any player. My problem is I see Mike Trout as 7-year contract with God knows how much money left, $250 million.
Yep.
And I don't know if the dude can play half a season every year. I don't even know if he can play half a season for 40% of the time of his contract that's left. You know, to me that's going to make it very hard for the Angels to trade him without eating a ton of contract. And if they're eating a ton of contract, that's taking money away from what they can spend or will probably spend on roster to help rebuild that team.
Yep.
So they're I mean, good luck to them finding a good trade for Trout. I don't think they'll get anything what the value was. Logan was really big on this last year that they should have traded Shohei and Trout in the offseason last year and just picked everything up. I said they should have traded Trout because they don't know what's going to happen with Trout. Keep Ohtani and try to build around Ohtani. I think the value on Trout was higher last offseason as well, and they could have gotten a lot more back for him, and whether it be prospects, and then they wouldn't have had nearly as much, or if any of his contract, and that they could have rebuilt their team around Shohei Ohtani. But at this point, they've lost Shohei Ohtani, and it's going to make them, it's going to put them in a very weak position in the trade market as well. If teams know they want to get rid of him, they're not going to be able to get as much in return.
Sorry to cut you off there. Do you think that Trout, where do you feel like? Let's do two separate questions with the Trout thing. Where do you think he will end up, and where do you think he should end up? Because I think the Angels thing is played out. I think if you're the Angels at this point, you have to move on. Like, you have to start your franchise over a little bit. Like, and I know Angels fans might kill me and say, well, like, again, there's nobody there. You're not winning ball games. You have to start to eventually try to move on to get you still have Rendon. You still owe this man like almost $200 million or $150 million. And he has played barely anything for you since that contract. You need to blow this up and start over. I am with you guys on that. But to the two questions, where do you think he will and where do you think he should? Just off the top of your head, I know we're just messing around, but where do you think, like, this is early in the process? I can go first, but I'll give you the first crack here.
Well, I would have to agree with the first two teams you said is where he probably would go. Would be Philly, the New York Mets. He might even flip over to the Dodgers because the Dodgers are so have so much talent. It wouldn't matter to them if he's
trade him
playing.
To the Dodgers. LA would trade him to LA. I don't think so, man.
I don't know. It depends on what the deal is. It depends on what the Dodgers want. Or I don't think it will happen. But that would be something that I could be like, I could see the Dodgers finding a way. If they wanted this, if they wanted him, I think they could find a way to make it happen.
Mookie
is what I'm
Betts
getting at.
Trout in the same outfield. I mean, talk about 4 years ago, what you would have thought I said about that. I mean,
so no, I think back near home, I can see the Yankees even taking a risk on it. But with what they have invested in Judge and Giancarlo Stanton and the rest of their team, I don't know if they got enough. I don't know if they want to spend that kind of money on the payroll. They got the money. I don't know if they want to spend that money and go up even more in the luxury tax. I don't know. The Trout thing is going to be weird. It's going to be interesting to watch this offseason, but I think the Angels are going to have a tougher time than maybe they're expecting.
He still has 8 years left on his deal.
8 years.
That is a ton of money. It's a ton of money. It's a ton of years left on it. And like you said, for a guy that's hurt a lot, somebody will take a chance on him, of course, but somebody's going to have to. The Angels are going to have to eat a ton of that contract. Is my guess, at least half, unless there's just some team that's so desperate for him. And some owner that goes full out with it. The team I kind of want, if I was just a dream world, okay, this is the team I think you should go to. You would take him maybe over the top. Is the Orioles? I think the Orioles are this young ascending team, and then you kind of get this guy that's looking for second life, and you have this young team to kind of help push you. And he's never been in the race, and never been with a team this loaded with a catcher that literally has the same sort of expectations he had at Addison Hutchinson, in terms of that mentality as a type of player. To me, if in a dream world, that's the team I would want him to go to. I don't think the Orioles would do that because of maybe things they'd have to give up in the minor. I'm just saying that's who I would want him to selfishly go to as a fan. I think the team he ends up with going forward, I honestly think he ends up with your Cardinals. That's who I think he ends up with, is the Cardinals going forward on the team. I think that's the team he ends up. That's who I just always think the Cardinals always find a way to get these guys on deals that I'm never expecting. If it's not the Mets or something like that, that's where the Cardinals to me are my first choice. So I think you guys would be. You have Goldschmidt, you have Arenado. You're in this weird place where maybe you guys go all in.
Man, if that happened, you'd have half of St. Louis would love it and half of St. Louis would be mad.
Well, let me ask you: would you love it? Let's say you
hate it.
What? You don't have to give up. You don't even have to give up Walker in the deal.
How much of the contract do they eat?
I mean, the Angels will have. I believe the Angels will have at minimum have to pay 50% of his contract to move it.
Here's how I take the deal.
And that's what the Cardinals always do. They get teams like the Rockies.
I get an Arenado deal. If I can get an Arenado deal, fine.
If I can
get an Arenado deal, I'll deal with the guy who only plays half the season. I'm already doing that with.
Cardinals do. You guys are the best at it. You screw over these teams that have no idea what they're doing, what they're thinking. You guys do it. You and the Braves, you have no other way of doing it. To sort of be like, oh yeah, let me give you you want 50 cents? Nice, and you'll give me $50. Great, it's a great deal. Thank you for that. We'll take advantage of that right now. I don't know. To me, it's fascinating story just at this point because we're going to talk so much playoffs the next few weeks. That's all we're locked in, and now is September. But Trout is no pun intended, Josh. He is the big fish hanging over the offseason if the Angels are serious about moving this guy. He's a game changer if he's healthy.
There's gonna be some other big fish out there, but yeah, he has the potential for him to be the biggest fish. Again, Randy Arozarena is going to be out there. That's a pretty big fish.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. The other team too.
I would pay a Arozarena for a 10-year, $200 million deal, $250 million deal, 8-year, $250 million, whatever. I would give a Arozarena that contract over Trout.
You give him that. So you would you rather have him as a ball player at this point in their careers too? Do you think
Arozarena over Trout?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not. I think he's a better. I don't think he's better right now.
He's healthier.
He's healthier, and he's as good.
Yeah.
He's as good.
Yeah.
He'll never get to be the better because he never got the hype that Trout got. So it doesn't matter. In the eyes of the public, he'll never be what Trout was. But I think at the end of their careers, I think Arozarena has a better career.
It's fascinating right there. We'll see what happens with Trout. It'll be very interesting where he ends up with it. Those are the teams. I mean, we know the Yankees are in, the Red Sox, of course. All those teams are going to be in the mix as well. Just a dark horse team that's always in free agent dark horse, just going to throw it out there as a team, is the Detroit Tigers. I know it sounds insane. I know it sounds asinine, but sometimes they have a way of pulling these weird things out. Trout, I know, has no trade clause. It's just a weird team that I always like to keep people interested.
I got one.
Yeah.
I got one for you. Cubs.
That's
where I think he goes.
Yeah,
that's where I think he can go.
That would be a great fit for him. He should try to get to. It'd be nice to see him in a hitter's ballpark on the East Coast. I think a lot of guys I like the West Coast. He does feel like an East Coast player to me. I wouldn't mind seeing him on the East Coast a little bit. He does gives me that lineup a little bit. As we can still go with Trout with this too. We were talking about before we came on, moving on the best lineups. Remaining contenders. Obviously, Braves, yay! They're like 500 home runs ahead of the next person. Who's the team that was right there? Is there a next team? Because in the playoffs, I feel like that's my question with the Braves. The strikeout ratios when you have the better pitchers. I'm telling you, there is a world where I might take the Astros lineup right there with the Braves lineup. Like when you get to me with a pitch by pitch crunch time situation, Josh, the Dodgers. Everybody goes Dodgers. That Astros, when you go Altuve, Bregman, and you go Alvarez, that's not simple with Pena there either.
No, I think you make a very valid argument. For me, it is the Braves are the cream, and then it's the Dodgers and the Stros are right there behind them. They're just a step behind, and I don't mean like big step. I mean small step. Like they're a small step behind. It's not a big gap. But those three teams are the best three lineups out there, top to bottom, on paper, in real life. But the Dodgers have just been so good as of late. That's the team that worries me for Atlanta. I don't think they're going to be able to buzz through that team. I think that's a 7-game series, and
even with all the Dodgers drama lately. Did you hear about all the Dodgers drama lately here?
I heard about Urias.
Bueller's gone for the season now, right? They're starting to lose starters a little bit more.
Oh, I didn't hear about Bueller.
So, I mean, they're starting to get a little bit there, and then the Braves took 3 out of 4 from them. I'm just saying. I'm just got to make that little counterpoint to it. I hear you.
Regular season's different than the playoffs.
No doubt. And the Astros would be a World Series matchup. That would be a totally different ballgame. Yeah. The Braves beat the Astros in the World Series, right? That's who they beat a few years ago. Was the Astros?
I believe so. Yeah, and I would take the Braves to beat the Astros again.
I think most of America would be behind that. My argument, though, is I just really think that Astros lineup is. I think I said it a month ago. Like they're just this team I believe in. Like they're just like a dog. They're like a dog that won't die. They really are as a team. Like baseball's a weird sport. Like in terms of you kind of forget about them. But like now Altuve and Bregman have been on the same team for like 8 years together now. It feels like at least 6. You build like in baseball. If you have a legit core, a legit core, and it sticks together. When you get to August and September, if you're a fan, you notice the difference. It is different baseball. The guys are more locked in. They hit better. They lay off pitches differently. And that's the feeling I get from the Astros when I watch. That's why I always have faith in them. Like, even through these rare, like, slumps during the beginning of the year, I'm like, these guys are professional freaking hitters. Like, these aren't like and they've been in a ton of big games. A ton. Cheating or not, they're still big atmosphere games. That's all I'm saying. And so I just think you can't dog the Astros. Like when we talk about the AL West all the time, right, Josh? Like Mariners, Rangers, is like the Mariners are still hot, but it's like who's ahead right now? Still the Astros. Just are. They're gritty, man, and like that's the other team. I mean, you said you might have another team that would be maybe in this mix. You got one that was the Orioles, maybe. I don't know who you got.
So the Orioles would be up there. Trying to think, is there anybody else we're not talking about?
How about Philadelphia? That's the team I wanted to talk to you about. Like, because they're starting to get hot again a little bit too, Josh. Like, I'm just Turner's starting to click a little bit. He's a stud when he figures it out. He is a game changer. And you have Schwarber, who to me is the most fascinating player in the history of Major League Baseball, baby. Like, you got him leading off, which cracks me up. Batting $198 at one point 4 weeks ago, but has 39 home runs. To me, it's the greatest leadoff hitter like stats ever. When I see that, it's just John. Like, could you imagine a leadoff hitter like that when my grandpa was growing up? 39 home runs, that's great, but you batted a butt 96, you idiot.
I'm still that guy. Like, I'm like, no. Like, he needs to be hitting 2. If he's hitting home runs at that clip, put him at 2 and put a dude who gets on at a 500 clip in front of him. At least then you're going to get another 50% RBI pickup out of him. Like, I don't know. I think it's a dumb strategy. That's just me, though.
I'm not saying it is. Okay, the other team, too, that if we wanted to go best, can I throw out? I mean, what do you think, though, of the Rays lineup? You mentioned Rosarena. The big thing has been their shortstop, Frank. That might ruin their season. There's still a game and a half there, and we're going to get into the weekend series later. Save that topic for later, but that's a team that has a pretty deadly lineup as well when they're clicking, Josh. But I don't have enough confidence in them. They slump a little too much for me. That's the issue I have with them. And I have and I mean zero. And I have a lot of confidence in the pitching staff, but I mean zero confidence in the Brewers lineup. So that team gets no love from me from a playoff contender at all. It does, and same with the Twins. Like the Twins have the same issue. I love a couple of their hitters, but then the other ones are just way too strikeout heavy for me to ever fall in love with on a consistent basis. Even Buxton strikes out a little too much for me at times. Like those are the type of lineups that just for me aren't going to get it done. But to me, that Astros-Braves debate is very fascinating if they meet in the World Series again this year just to see what happens. Because that Braves team, when they played them before, totally different team. This is like a set Braves lineup. This is not like we traded for 5 guys at the deadline to make something happen.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's just a go-around right now. And
yeah, no doubt.
I'm trying to think of anybody else who's left that maybe we left out or we should consider.
I mean, the Blue Jays with Guerrero, maybe. That's the only team I think we left out, possibly. The Padres are out, so we're not including them in this anymore.
The Mariners are playing really, really well, but I don't think they have the best lineup. They might have the most mojo.
Do you think they're top 5 out of all those playoff teams? Are they better than the Blue Jays?
I would say not on paper.
No. Would you take them over the Cubs lineup?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Orioles? You just saw them. See, to me, that's a tough one.
See, that's because I'm so big on pitching at this time of the year. Yeah. I would lean towards Seattle. Baltimore's pitching is pretty good.
For me, Seattle, but if we're talking just lineup, for me, Seattle, it's Rodriguez, and I don't. Okay, Hernandez also has been on fire, so that's where I feel a little bit more confident in. But so I think I might lean with you too with Seattle in that as well.
If Ty France gets like he was at the beginning of the year,
yeah.
If he finds that kind of heat again, maybe it wasn't this year, but it was last year.
And the Mullins factor for the Orioles, he got hurt, remember, and he's a great player. He was great, you know what I mean? So if you have him back in the lineup, that changes that immediately for the Orioles as well.
It's
kind of a fun debate, though, huh?
It is, yeah, because you're making me sit here and go, hold on now, back up, wait a minute, hold on.
As we go to the stat leaders real quick as we kind of stay with that. I'm going to bring it up here on the screen here. We just kind of, like I said, as we get to the end of the season here, for me, I just love looking at, one of my favorite things to do, Josh, for baseball, and that's why I do the pod. Everybody goes, you do the 7th inning and then you do baseball too. It's baseball to me, I try to get people to understand it's that is my first love. When I was that's it. So the box scores to me are one of the best things for me. I still love looking at it to this day. Love love just kind of looking at it. See, you get a feel for it every single day. And as I bring it up here with some of the stats, we got Acuna, Freeman, Betts, Olsen in the mix as well. Tons of Braves, as you can see, in the top 10. For me, I want to shout out Christian Yelich on these stats leaders this year. Welcome back to the big leagues. Welcome back to the big leagues this year, my friend.
I thought his career was over.
Disappeared off the face of the earth.
I thought his career was totally over, and he has come back this year, and I was wrong. Wrong.
How about Bellinger, too?
Oh, I called Bellinger, though. I called that at the beginning of the season, bro.
But I'm just saying, back to life. The stats prove it. I mean, he's back to life with it, right there with it. So,
I was wrong on Bellinger, though, real quick.
Yes.
Is I said he would rejuvenate himself, and the Cubs would be so bad that they would trade him for prospects or something they needed. Well, instead, they decided they were going to go for it. But, yeah, he's played fantastically.
Little shout out to Lane Thomas and Nico Horner making top 20 in runs. Never would have thought that at the beginning of the year. hits again. Acuna, Freeman. It's crazy they were teammates at the same time. Rodriguez leads the American Leagues in hit with 171. It's going to be a good battle to the end, though, to see Josh and the National League who does lead it in hits here, because you have Acuna at 199, Freeman at 194, and Arias at 190. You would think Arias might be done 9 hits ahead, but you don't know if the Braves rest players and that type of thing. It will be interesting to see who ends up with the most hits in the league there. Arias looks like he's going to win the National League title unless he really goes into a slump, and maybe Freeman or Acuna really pick it up. But to me, those are kind of some of the fascinating stats there. Looking forward to the end of the season there. Anything that maybe stands out to you, or anything you want me to look up here real quick?
No. You know what? I do want you to check something. Check stolen bases for me. I haven't checked stolen bases in like 3 or 4 weeks.
Acuna has 66. Ruiz from the A's has 58. Carroll 47. Witt 44. Abrams 41. Horner 50. Rodriguez 36. Kim 35. Castro 31. Franco from Tampa 30. There's a chance you get, I'm guessing maybe there's a chance you get 8 guys with 40 or more stolen bases. That's a big deal.
That's pretty cool. That means we ain't Logan on the show, so we can apologize.
Josh, remember one of my favorite stats, triples. Corbin Carroll and Marte lead the league with 9. That's one of my favorite stats. Very little. And remember, I think we looked it up before. I'm going to do it one more time. I'm going to go back to 1987 here. What we got here? 1987, 15 stolen bases by, yes, of course you know him, Juan Samuel. That's the case. Strikeouts, Josh. Who leads the league in strikeouts?
Schwarber.
Yep, 192. Well, he doesn't technically lead it. He's tied with Suarez with 192 as well. So just incredible. You remember my guy Jose Hernandez? He was my guy early on in the Brewers that was famous for striking out a lot. He played for the Pirates as well. So those are some of the stats leaders here this week in Major League Baseball. Josh, as we start to get to the end, obviously we'll probably touch on more of the awards as we kind of get closer to that standpoint and talk more in the season. But again, I'm always fascinated by some of the award, the stats during the year. And right now, the Braves just continue to be a dominant team in that aspect. They just continue to dominate the leaderboard as well. With the same guys, Arias creeping up, his average obviously dropped a big deal as well during the year, as you called, for sure. There.
I was wrong on that one.
I was wrong on that one as well. Josh, I always I do this stuff on Fat Boy Fadeaway too. Like sometimes, we talk sports all the time. Like naturally, probably if me and you met in real life, more likely we're starting out a conversation with, hey, what team are you on? What's that you're going with?
Hold on, time out. If we met in real life, you mean met in person?
Met in person.
Sorry. I mean, this is real life, bro.
No, this is AI to me. I thought this was AI. Are you kidding? This is real life. This is what this.
I was like, what?
Josh, this is why I can. This is why I can relate to 5-year-olds. This is so that.
This is where I struggle with my 3.5.
This is why I can do kindergarten PE, Josh. This is why I can do it real life, right there. Okay, if we met an actual person, right, and I shook your hand, me and you would probably naturally talk about sports in some regard. But like in Fat Boy Fadeaway, maybe not. Maybe we talk local politics. But in Fat Boy Fadeaway, we usually talk once in a while. I'll bring up something that happens. This week for me, it's hard for me not to think of September 11th. And it happened Monday a little bit. And for me, I know selfishly, I always say this, that was my senior year in high school. So I'm telling you, I was really into sports that year, Like the A's were really good at 2001. So to give people a refreshment on the baseball side of things, that was the year that the A's went up 2-0 on the Yankees. They came back and beat them. The Yankees then played the Diamondbacks in the World Series and lost that year in the World Series. That's the year we're talking about. That year always kind of stands out to me because that week also, you very rarely do you have a whole week of sports canceled, professional sports. It just wasn't a thing. And so when you're 17, you kind of look at it like, oh, why are we playing 3 days later? You're trying to comprehend everything at that age. And it's a big deal when you see it in the moment. So I guess I just kind of thought maybe for a second, because it was part of baseball. A lot of people remember the George Bush strike he threw there at the World Series as well. That was kind of a big moment. And I would say, Josh, in my lifetime, this is my lifetime. I'm 39. And it's one of the saddest days, September 12th, the very next day when all this was being processed. It did feel like a day we were all united as one as well that day, where we kind of had a common – I don't know, that's kind of where it was a weird feeling that day as well. I just remember thinking that. I remember my dad bringing my dad like, hey, what's going on here at the TV? Curious to get your thoughts, just where you were that day when that happened. Obviously, it was 6:38 my time, 6 o'clock, so way earlier. Not sure where you were at in your day. Go ahead.
I was Eastern Standard Time then. You were a senior in high school, so you graduated in 2003?
I graduated in 2002. So it happened in September 2001, and then graduated in 2002 that summer.
So I was in middle school. So 6th grade, I guess. 7th grade. No, I was 7th grade, I guess. Because, I graduated in 2007. I remember the class I was in. I remember exactly who I was sitting next to. So I was in public school. No problem with it. Whatever. But so with your school, did you guys have like the TVs, the little small tube TVs in every single room?
Yeah, but I remember my teachers. We didn't watch it ever. I noticed a lot of people talking about this. They got their teachers let them watch it. My principal just made an announcement over the intercom about it, and like, if you need to talk to somebody or whatever. But we never watched it until I got home. So I watched it in the morning because it happened at 6 a.m. Our school started at 8 a.m. So it was kind of a weird day altogether. It was kind of a weird day. So we didn't see it live. That's what I mean. Like, you ahead of time, it would have been a lot different because you would have been seeing it before you were at school compared to me before.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. So think of it that way. So, first tower got hit. There was some odd reason somehow all the TVs started getting turned on. I don't know what happened. Whatever. But I was in computer class because we're doing. You remember the making you learn how to type?
Yep.
On a computer. That's the class I was in.
What grade did you say you were again?
I had to be 6th or 7th. I was in some kind of a computer class. It was some kind of a computer class.
Yep.
Because I can remember my friend Joe was sitting next to me on the right-hand side, and we kind of looked up. We looked and we saw what happened, and it was like, what? And we got to watch. Man, we saw the second tower get hit.
Could you comprehend that at 6th and 7th grade? What happened really? Like you knew it was bad, but did you really feel it out, or did you have I'm just curious, were you able to understand in the moment what that was happening?
So, I could remember the bombing in '96.
Yeah. Oh wow.
And '92. So I not that I remember them personally, but I had heard about them.
Yeah.
I was kind of a history kid, so I kind of watched things that had happened and had heard stories from my family about all these things that happened in the past. Just people talking because I had older cousins and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I knew bad things happened in the world. Like I wasn't, even at my age, I was not naive to that. So I didn't know what the World Trade Centers were.
Me really either, other than just the massive towers.
Yeah, I just know they're massive towers, but I'm like, they're called the World Trade Center. This must have something to do with the stock market. I remember that being one of my first thoughts. I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to cause total economic chaos. Did I have any idea that they were office buildings and people actually that the buildings were as big as they were? Did I understand that? No. I didn't understand what they were. I didn't understand how many people worked there. I didn't understand where they were located. So I had no idea until probably that evening the massive damage that was really done. When I remember when the Pentagon got hit.
How did your parents react?
So my mom worked for the government, for local governments, state government. Yeah. So I know their mom was concerned, obviously.
Yeah.
Dad was concerned, but they were very calm and rational about it. It was very. I grew up in a very good home with a very good mother and father who had very strong moral stances and good head on their shoulders.
Yeah.
They probably handled it the best way they probably could with something they had never experienced having a child before, especially who was a
Are you the oldest teenager?
Too? I'm the only.
Only, okay.
So I mean, my world was always pretty real.
Yeah.
I just thought things were going to be a lot worse than what it was, and then as things came out, it took a few days to understand it. But I mean, I followed it pretty closely. The whole time through the recovery and what all the stuff they've done for it. And
Can I tell you about what, like, honestly, this was my big, like, so I was 17, going to be turning 18 that summer. Like, honestly, I thought I was going to go to war. From my standpoint, that's where I was thinking, like, I was like, I'm going to be going to, like, and I commend anybody that fought for us in that, like, that's something like my family, I have a background of firefighter, like my dad's a firefighter. So obviously a lot of firefighters died in that. My grandfather, who my dad was a police officer, so I have that appreciation of that stuff, but I don't, and I have grandfathers that fought in World War I and World War II, but like, I just remember that being a selfish thought maybe as well, because at 17, 18, you're not really necessarily wanting to go. That wasn't my desire anyways at that point. No. And I remember thinking like, oh crap, we're gonna go to war with it. Like that's remember I thinking too.
You thought you were gonna get drafted.
Probably at 6th or 7th grade, you weren't thinking that quite yet. I'm thinking in senior year, like, well, I'm the cream of the crop, right? I'm like, right where we gotta go. Like, so I just remember that being like a thought process of mine going through that, and I always think it's funny, but I always relate it back because I was like, like when you're young and you're very manipulative in your mind, and have you ever seen like a movie at a young age and it stays with you your whole life, like the scene that maybe either freaks you out. I have no idea. Maybe I'll embarrass myself by saying it. I know I have by watching the movie back, but when I want to say I saw Forrest Gump at like 9 years old, and that scene where he's in Army and he's like carrying those guys back. I remember as a 9-year-old thinking, I never want to do that. Ever. I know, and like, so I remember thinking that when that happened, like, oh crap, that is my worst reality is coming true selfishly in that regard. To me, it's just something, Josh, like it's just such a big historical event, and it did affect sports in a way too, because we canceled sports for a week. If, like I said, the George Bush thing, like that whole playoffs was insane that year. Like that was like one of the most insane playoffs years ever. That was the year that the Mariners had won 116 games. The Yankees beat them that year. I don't know. Like I love sports as anybody else, but I like talking about where we were and these things. Well, and it was funny for me having a 5th grade son now, Josh. He asked me yesterday or on Tuesday, like, where were you with that? It's like, it's just funny to think that I'm at that point of my life now where I live. But I think you probably even realize that as a 6th grader or a 7th grader. You probably realized you were witnessing history, not in a good way, but you realized you were witnessing something that was going to be with you for the rest of your life.
I knew when it happened, or once we found out what had happened.
Yeah.
I knew that was going to change my entire world perspective. I knew that was the day that I went from being very innocent and not understanding anything about the world to there are bad people out there that don't like us just because of who we are. And I've always thought of America as being everybody's favorite place because it was always, this is where people, they left their home countries to come here and make a life for themselves.
No doubt, reality check for sure.
So, yeah, I mean, it definitely changed everything. Like, I got into religion. Like that's. I mean, I was a kid, so I wasn't super into religion. I got into religion after that once I found out how everything perspired and who all was involved. I had to know what was going on. So that was one thing that actually drove me more to church as a young person.
That's interesting. I very cool as well. I just didn't know that. That's pretty neat. Sometimes like it's funny how God works like that. And there's certain events in your life that will kind of make you think of things differently. And like I always say, like the one thing I always say is you gotta have the proper fear of God. That's what I always say. We're not here to real bit, and that means anything. I always use that for sports. My favorite thing for sports is when Greg Popovich says you have to have the proper fear of your opponent. The same way I look at the big guy. You got to have the proper fear of it to keep everything in perspective. My guy CP, New York Mets, Chris, appreciate you. We were just talking about where we were on September 11th. I know you were obviously in New York. We were just kind of talking that from a history standpoint. 2001, I was a senior at that standpoint. That was a big deal in my life at that point. We were talking about that. And we, on a little different note, we were talking about possibly Mike Trout coming to your Mets as well. We were trying to destinize how that would make it happen. Your owner seems like he would have the wallet to get it done. Josh, we got to get this guy on. I'm telling you, he's really good at what he does. He does a Mets one. He does a New York Giants podcast, and he does a New York Knicks one. He's been on my Fat Boy Fadeaway show. I just really respect his work ethic, Chris from New York. I'm shouting you out, man, because you deserve it. I've seen the way you're grinding on your show. Keep it up, man. You're doing an awesome job with it. I appreciate you taking your time to tune in to me and Josh Edwards here on 7th Inning Stretch.
Chris, get with Darren and let him know when you can come on. Whenever we can get you on, man, you let us know.
We'll try not to talk Braves with you.
All three of our teams are having a bad year. I think we can just have a piss and moan session.
Yeah, we'll avoid talking about Olsen's 51st home run and all those good things with that. But Chris, yeah, thanks for tuning in there for it. It was kind of poetic timing there as we were talking about September 11th there with the New York guy tuning in with it. I think we touched on it there a little bit, Josh, but just definitely one of those big events that kind of happened in our life there for sure. Chris, again, appreciate you tuning in here. We're getting closer to the end here. Maybe Tyler will jump on here. If not, he's here for the Diamond Notes. Shout out Peter Gammons, ESPN, my friend. That's what it is. Chris, thank you, man. I appreciate that so much. I had to stop in for my West Coast guys. Let's do it. We'll make that happen. Chris, we'll definitely make that happen. You were one of my main baseball guys, so we'll definitely get that on there. I appreciate you taking your time to tune in here. Like I said here this evening, Diamond Notes, as I like to do here. Like I said, shout out to Peter there. Never seen before. We talked about stolen bases, Josh. We talked about it. Trey Turner, though, interestingly, is now 31 for 31 so far this year. Merrifield got 33 in 2001. That's the record as of now. But can you guess who has the most stolen bases consecutively without getting caught? Do you know who that would be?
Can I have 3 guesses?
Yes.
Ricky Henderson?
Nope.
Lou Brock?
Nope.
Okay, I want 4 guesses.
No, you get 3. Let's go.
Let's say Barry Bonds.
Very good. I'll give you a clue. He played for the St. Louis Cardinals, my friend. Your team, 50 in a row. Vince Coleman.
Vince Coleman.
He's the one that holds
it. My team. I was like, hold on.
He was your 4th one. All right, I'll admit it. He was your 4th one there, right there. So 50 in a row. Biggio is my guess, not Biggio. Solid guess there. I'll give you that, Tyler. Tyler tuning in. Won't be able to make it tonight. Tyler, appreciate it with any comments you can make here for the rest of the show. Appreciate your notes. So Turner right now is 31 for 31. He could extend it. Could he get to 50 for 50? Josh, this brings us to a bigger point this year in the baseball season. 3,000 stolen bases this season for the first time since 2012. It's nice to see we got some legs in the MLB. Very nice. Good to see we got some legs here. I'm actually shocked that was 2012 that happened. I'm shocked.
Me too.
I thought it was going to be like 1992.
I was thinking the 80s.
So, but that's a lot for baseball. That's a big difference for this year. I know the home runs are still up a little bit, but like it just feels a little different watching the way that teams are being a little bit more aggressive on the bases. I'm liking that. Still, it's Bud Selig, the other worst commissioner of all time, Rob Manfred. Let's get rid of that second base rule, my friend, over there in extra innings. It's an absolute joke. I hate it with a passion. Other Diamond Note, your boy going for the singing this week. Wainwright going to perform for the fans going out, I guess, on his last week. He did get his 199 to win, Josh, as well. Adam Wainwright, he's going for that. Big blow to the Marlins. Alcantara goes out with a sprained UCL. MRI reveals a big blow to them. Even if they get into the playoffs, it's hard to see them doing any damage without this guy on their roster. Would you agree?
I disagree a little bit.
You think they could actually beat a team in a series, a 5-game series without this guy pitching?
A 5-game, yes, not a 7-game.
Wow. I don't think
Here's why. He has not been up to par all season long. And okay, hold on. That's not fair. He just isn't Cy Young Sandy Alcantara this year like he was last year. So it seems like he's been a little bit of a letdown. And they've still managed to do what they've done this season. Do I think they could get 3 games from somebody out of what they have? Yes. Do I think they can get 4? No. That's what I'm saying.
I don't think they can even get 3. That's where I'm at with it. I believe that's okay. I believe that with it. Tyler Acuna's got 66. It looks like he's going to get 70. I appreciate the guy for doing it. I think Ruiz would have got 70 as well if he didn't get hurt there for a time span on the A's. Just because the A's, they just were sending him. Like, literally, they were just like, you're the entertainment. Go your entertainment for the evening. Run.
Go.
Giants are getting warm. Tyler, don't come on the podcast. That's when they're not warm, I guess. That's when they get cold over there with it. No, the Giants are back in it, a game and a half out. We're gonna touch on that in a minute as well. Giants are getting a little warm there, so hopefully you're enjoying the game. I saw your star catcher is coming back, so that's good to see him coming back for the Giants. You know you're going to need him as well. National owner, he's been there for 15 years. He signed an extension this week. I forget his name off the top of my head. He's been there now for 15 years. But what do you think about the Nationals not holding anything for Strasburg? Do you think they should? I don't necessarily think they should feel inclined to do something for him. He doesn't feel like an all-timer. What do you think?
Pass.
He's drafted like an all-timer. Right? Like the hype around him was like an all-timer.
And that's the problem. He would have a phenomenal career while he was healthy.
A weird.
But they made this. Yeah, but when he was good, man, he was.
I don't know. What do you think?
I don't think he has longevity to be anything special. That's my problem with it.
Yeah.
If they wouldn't have hyped him the way they did, and then his career ended up the way it did, different ball game. I mean, maybe if he would have not been hyped the way he was, maybe I wouldn't feel this way. But I feel like he was.
Don't throw 112 miles per hour in college. Don't throw. Remember, he played for Tony Gwynn in college.
He set the bar this high, and he just never hit it.
And that's what, yes, Chris, you're right. They did cancel his retirement thing. The owner came out and said that. That's why I thought it was interesting. He was the MVP. He should get something. Josh, this is where it gets a little weird for me with him because if you look at his stats overall, it's not like he's the best player of all time, but he's a 3-time All-Star, won the MVP. He was the World Series MVP, and believe it or not, he was a Silver Slugger winner as a pitcher at his position as well. That's kind of a random stat with him. I think they should acknowledge him because of the fact that you were the Nationals. He was one of your primetime players you took. He had a mess of a history stat, like injury-wise. Like, I don't know if there's any player that had more injury history, but I do think there should be some sort of acknowledgement with him in that regard. I'm not saying he's the best player or anything like that. I'm just thinking like they should at least acknowledge him in that way. In most of his career, he held under a 4-point ERA all the way from 2010 to 2019. He never had more than a 4-point ERA. One year he did start 34 games. That was his best year in 2014. He had 242 strikeouts. It's going to be weird what they do with him going forward.
He should totally be acknowledged. Like you can't.
To me, it just seems like a bad move from the franchise.
Well, it's a bad franchise.
You think they mean? Yeah, I guess so. I guess you're right. I'm not going to argue that. What do you think about McCutchen saying he can help the Pirates next year? Remember we had our guy the Ford on earlier, the Pirates guy who does the announcing for the Pirates over there, McHenry. He said that he thinks McCutchen should come back. He said McCutchen should come back another year to help him. This is before the injury. I think he should. I think the Pirates now, they get Cruz for a whole year. The problem with the Pirates, it's hard to judge them because they were without like their best prospect for almost the whole freaking season because he got hurt like the second week of the year. Kind of one of the more disappointing storylines of the year for me is O'Neal Cruz going down and not being able to play. They shut him down for the rest of the year. He's not going to play at the final 2 weeks. Just real quick, because we talked about Cabrera a little bit last week and him retiring. McCutchen's not going to retire. But do you think he should stay with the Pirates? Do you think he should move on somewhere else?
I think he needs to do what he wants to do. I love Kutch. Again, Cardinal guy.
Do you think he'd help the Pirates more, though, being with them opposed to going to another team? Like, this is the team he started out with. Do you think, like, him being there with them, continuing through this process while they're starting to get better again, is he the presence that could help them?
I think I think he should stay.
Yeah. Okay.
On a personal note, I think he pulls a Pujols.
Okay.
I mean, for lack of a better word, that formation, that guidance, that's so important to young players. And I'll be honest with you, I think that's why. The game's changed. I think players stopped teaching rooks how to do it the right way and take care of the fan bases and appreciate everything they had. I think something got lost in translations.
Man, that goes back to your analytics point.
Well, yeah, but I don't know. I like the mentorship. I like making sure tradition lives on, and I love it when guys who are great dudes and great players at the end of their career bow out gracefully and then help pass something on to the next generation to preserve the things we love about baseball.
Yeah.
Sorry, I could not articulate that better up front.
No,
My apologies.
I agree with you completely on that. That's exactly how I would take it as well. That's exactly what I want. I also think McCutchen still wants to get back at it. Like you talk about Rodgers at the very beginning. Aaron Rodgers going down. He goes down with the Achilles. I think he wants to come back. And I know that note. We had our guy Chris on here for a minute. Scherzer out for the regular season, but no surgery needed. Turned out to not be a good trade for the Rangers. The Rangers, did win a couple games out, so they're back in the second wild card. Josh, when we do this show next week, and then the next week, we're gonna still be talking about the wild card race. That's where we're at with this thing in the baseball season here.
Oh yeah,
approaching an hour here. Chris, you did get that one right with trading Scherzer. Nice job. You did trade Scherzer in your Mets. You guys made out all right with that trade, getting rid of him because obviously he was a disaster for the Mets and he wasn't going to give you guys anything anyways at all. Those are my diamond notes for the week. Josh, as we're getting on an hour here on the show, about to call it a show here. It's kind of as we start to look to the weekend series. Yes, he did. And you got Acuna Jr.'s brother. Like you guys did a great job doing that. And you guys got a new. Did you get a new president, Chris, or a GM? I think it was a president.
President of baseball operations.
Yeah, okay, that's what it was. It was the president. I was listening to the show the other day. I want to make sure it wasn't the GM. I was thinking that got president of the GM. So I'm curious what that does with the Mets as well there. But yes, he did fleece him on the Rangers deal there. My buddy, who's a Rangers fan, that as soon as that trade was made, he's like, "What are we doing?" He was so pissed. He did not like that trade at all as a Ranger. Yes, yep, new player there. Mr. Stearns, yep, that's what it was. I wanted to say Mr. Steamer, but I know it wasn't Steamer. That's Stanley Steamer's out here on the West Coast, so I didn't know if that was the same guy.
You got Stanley Steamer on the East Coast too.
Yeah, they do a great job cleaning the carpet. Yeah, okay, thanks, Chris. Appreciate that with the new PBO. That's exactly what I was thinking with it. It'll be interesting what happens with that. So Scherzer out, they get fleeced. Josh, if we get to the end of the show here, MLB series to look out for on the weekend. We end it how we always do with this. I mean, my friend, how do we not say Orioles Rays as the series to be? That to me, that's as good as you could get for a weekend series, right? Rays
absolutely.
At Orioles, a lot on the line. I mean, that's the best series this weekend. It's not even close.
Yeah, there's nothing close to that.
Especially with what's on the line.
Yeah, it's what's on the line.
And how good the team are. How good they are too. That's what matters.
Oh yeah. And it's a bunch of guys you don't know unless you live in those two cities or you're a fan of that division or you're a team in that division. For all the rest of baseball, this is two teams that you don't virtually know the roster like you would with a Yankees or a Red Sox or a Dodgers.
Exactly. You're right. Tampa Bay and Baltimore. Nobody's getting.
So it's gonna make it fun. It's gonna be a good. If you just like baseball, if you just like baseball, if you can catch the Tampa Bay Baltimore series, catch what you can of it.
All right, let's make a little prediction real quick. Rays are down 3 in the loss column. Do they make it a division race the rest of the year? Or the Orioles finish them off maybe this weekend?
Who's pitching each game?
Well, Flaherty goes the first game. The next matchup is Glanslow versus Rodriguez. Then you finish off the Sunday with Little versus Kremer. I mean, the Orioles maybe would have the pitching matchup, but to me, I don't know. It's division play. It doesn't always matter to me.
I mean, I lean Baltimore.
Baltimore finish. It could just be as simple as 2 out of 3, and they finish it off that way as well.
I think they have to sweep to put the nail in the coffin. I think if they win 2 out of 3, that leaves the door open for Tampa Bay to run the rest of their schedule.
Couple more series that, Josh, I'm excited about seeing this weekend. Cubs at D-backs. And, Steele going in the first game, who is now the Cy Young favorite of the NL. And then kind of a one you don't see very often, Dodgers at Seattle. To me, that's kind of at this time of year, depending on how both teams are, to me, that's kind of a fascinating one as well. You also have a battle between the Rangers and Guardians. Not a big deal, but like the Rangers are just such on the spot right now. It's like every series there is such a massive deal. Everyone there to me is just such a big deal. The Rangers at this point, they're just grinding them out right now. Even though they're now second wild card, I don't feel like they're second wild card. So that's going to be a little bit for me. So to me, those are some of the weekend series here to go with as we wrap up seventh inning stretch here in the dugout studio mugs here. Josh Edwards with me. I'm Darren Breyer over at Fat Boy Fadeaway, presented here at Row One Brand at Variety Sports Network. We appreciate our guys, Chris, tuning in with our comments. Our guys, Doug, Tyler, appreciate you tuning in as well. Makes the show a lot better when you guys are tuning in. So I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your evening to do that. Me and Josh will be with you more here as we get into the playoffs. We'll be with you now. Tuesday's our goal next week. We want to respect. We want to respect the national day that is Thursday Night Football for everybody else. So we're going to try to move it to Tuesday. Hopefully we get a little bigger audience tuning in with that. That's the idea. I did not do it yesterday though. Had a son, my son's 8th birthday, so I had to tell Josh, hey, can we move it back? Josh was flexible enough with me to make it happen. Appreciate that here. Like I said last week, me and Josh Edwards just try to bring the best baseball content we can from a fan's perspective. That's our goal on the show as we start to get close to the end of the season here. Josh Edwards, how you guys doing anything this word Birds and Bush? You guys done with that right now? What's up with that? You guys retiring? The season done?
Well, I'm hoping that Jordan and I can get on next week. Hopefully all his school stuff's finished up so we can get back to doing the show together and having a good time.
School's over.
We actually got some stuff to talk about because, ouch. The Cardinals have been playing spoiler for the last week. 2 out of 3 from Atlanta, 2 out of 3 from Baltimore, and 2 out of 3 from who else did we play? I had it up here earlier. I'm just blanking at the moment.
But you guys have took 2 out of the last. You guys have basically took 2 from every series you took. Did you play Baltimore? Did you play?
Cincinnati. We took 2 out of 3 from Cincinnati. Took 2 out of 3 from Baltimore. We got 3 with Philly this weekend. So if we keep doing what we're doing, we can help, you can help somebody in the East or hurt the Phillies. And then we got a 4-game set with Milwaukee. So, and then San Diego, Milwaukee, Cincinnati. So we got games against playoff teams the rest of the way. So we'll see what happens. They've been hot recently, which sucks because they always get hot in September and we're out of it.
No, we did not touch on your Mets hurting Zach Gallen's Cy Young chances. You guys did though tonight. I was looking at that scoreboard. Josh, I don't know if you were aware of the score from tonight, but they did kind of hurt Zach Gallen, who was basically right there in the mix for the Cy Young. The Mets ended up putting a number on him today.
Ooh, they did.
Not something he was looking forward to.
How many did he give up?
How much did Gallen give up in the?
He gave up 6.
6 in the run day, yeah. So he took a real beating today in that matchup. So I think he's done. That's where I think the guy Steele from the Cubs, I think now has the advantage upper hand going forward here, don't you?
Steele. I would give it to Steele over Snell, but
me too.
Because
what you said last week, he's on a playoff team right now. I mean, you got to give him that. Like he's on a playoff team. That's just that's the way you got to do those things with it. So, as we're wrapping up 7th inning stretch, if you got a little time, just a little time, maybe check me out at Fat Boy Fadeaway on Sundays. We've been doing it for a while. If you tell your friends to subscribe to us, I don't know. I just try to be as real as possible with people as I can. That's why me and Josh Edwards work here on 7th inning stretch. I'm going to tell you how it is. I'm going to try to have fun with it. That's why when Chris was on with us, all that stuff. That's on the show Fat Boy Fadeaway. Please check that out. Talking the Gridiron Sunday nights, Chris. I'm getting you on that as well with the Giants perspective one of these times too. So we're doing that. Josh will be back next Tuesday, it sounds like, though, with our show. I don't have anything going on September 19th. Looks like that's the day we're going to be shooting for to get back on. Josh, can you believe at that point there'll be basically 10 games left? So that day when we do it, there'll be 10. That's where we're at from the start of the season. Now we're at 162, my friend. We're going to be at that point right there. We're right at the end. It's crazy, huh?
It is super crazy, but on a sour note for personal reasons, I can move on to hockey season. And my hockey team is probably not going to be much better this year, but at least it's something to have hope for till Christmas time. And then I can start looking forward to baseball again.
Josh and his St. Louis Blues. Go Sharks! Go Sharks! That's what I want over there.
We'll be better than you guys will this year.
We used to have this local radio guy named Ray. It wasn't Ray Ratto. It was somebody else. Ray, something. Help me out, Tyler, if you're watching. But with Tom Tolbert, he goes, "Go Sharks!" He had this really weird voice. But it was so funny. They would do this clip of it whenever he would do it. I think his nickname was the Razor. I want to say the Razor, but anyway, it was just kind of a funny deal with it. So for Josh Edwards, I'm Darren Breyer. This is 7th Inning Stretch. You're home for the fans in baseball. Thank you, Dugout Mug Studio. Thank you, Row One Brand. Thank you, Chris from New York Sports. Please subscribe to his channel. Thank you, Tyler McGurk, TMB Podcast. Yes, I will be doing 50 push-ups live on Fat Boy Fadeaway Sunday because I lost a bet with the Niners and the Steelers. So, if you want to
What
see
time
me
is that?
That is early, Josh. I don't know if you can be up for 8 a.m. my time, 10 a.m. your time. I'll be pumping. I'll be doing.
I'm up by then, dude.
I will be doing 50 push-ups live on Fat Boy Fadeaway this Sunday for my lost bet with the Niners Steelers. So that will be. We'll see if I can pump them out there on Sunday.
If
Gentlemen,
my daughter does not have me distracted, I will be there.
That sounds good. I'll see you there and then see if I'll die at 30. So for Josh Edwards, I'm Darren Breyer. 7th Inning Stretch. Peace.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Brandon, CEO of the Variety Sports Network. Thank you again for watching tonight's show. Best way you can support us is by hitting that subscribe button, that like button, and hitting the notifications so you don't miss out on the next show right here on the Variety Sports Network.